On this edition of CGN World Report, arrested in Libya, 4 Christian workers are in custody for preaching the gospel.
The baby drop box, how one Korean minister is giving unwanted children a shot at life.
We'll head to an orphanage in India where kids have found a safe place and meet the man behind it. These stories and more on this edition of CGN World Report. Hello, I'm Young Kim.
I'm Cecilia Choi. 4 Christians sit behind bars in the North African nation of Libya.
Libyan officials say the foreign missionaries are accused of distributing Christian literature. As Gary Lane reports, that's a charge that could carry the death penalty.
On Monday, we arrested a group. We found a print shop in Shabna area in Gazi City. We found 45,000 Christian books.
The foreigners were reportedly printing pamphlets explaining Christianity. The material was mostly directed towards children. But proselytizing in Libya is a criminal offense, punishable by death, according to a law carried over from Muammar Gaddafi's reign.
We are a 100% Muslim country. This issue is not negotiable. It's prohibited to proselytize in Libya because it's an entirely Muslim country.
The 4 missionaries are in custody in Benghazi. The group is made up of a Swedish American, an Egyptian, a South African, and a South Korean. Libyan officials allowed Egyptian detainee Sharif Ramses to speak to the media. He says he was brought here from the moment they arrested him, and that he's been treated respectfully and not abused. Ramses went on to admit the group was in Libya to spread Christianity. An official presence said there were also espionage allegations against him because he refused to meet with anyone from his embassy. Ramses said he declined because he knew he would get little help from Egypt.
A documentary about a South Korean pastor who rescues disabled babies has won the top prize at the San Antonio Independent Christian Film Festival.
It's a very moving story. It tells the story of Pastor Lee Jong-rak, who discovered that hundreds of these babies are abandoned every year. So he built a drop box in the wall of his home so their parents could leave them with him. Here's Charlene Israel.
On this normal residential street in Seoul, Korea, a sign says, "Place to leave babies." This is a baby box. A thick towel covers the bottom and lights and heating keep a baby comfortable. A bell rings when someone puts a baby in the box. Then a helper comes to immediately move the baby inside. This past year, 6 infants or small children were rescued here. They're physically or mentally handicapped or babies from unmarried mothers who can't care for their children.
His skull is not shaped right. This note says, he has this handicap. I am so sorry, but I am not able to raise this baby. So I put him safely in the baby box of Jesus Loving Union Church.
Official reports say about 600 infants or young children are abandoned in the streets every year, but the number is probably higher. Only about 20% of abandoned infants or children are rescued and placed temporarily in juvenile protection centers. Hundreds are said to die on the streets. The numbers of infant deaths and abandoned children are bound to get worse as the rate of children born to single mothers increases. Government efforts have not kept up with the need, which is why Christian professionals developed the baby box.
It's best for the parents themselves to raise their children. But when the country does not perform its function in this situation, it's important to save the lives of babies first.
Reverend Lee first introduced the idea of the baby box in Korea as a temporary solution to keep abandoned babies alive.
There is no reason for the baby box to exist if the government takes care of the children's safety and making them happy. Baby box should go. But right now, there is only inaction and lack of concern.
But Reverend Lee hopes that better social services for parents and their special needs babies will someday make the baby box unnecessary.
In the African nation of Mali, fighting continues between government troops and the Islamic rebels in the north. That means thousands of Malians displaced by war and remain homeless a while longer.
In the meantime, Operation Blessing is there, bringing them help in their time of need. Gary Lane has the latest from the capital city of Bamako.
Amin Abreu was planning to return home to Gao after French forces liberated the city. Her hopes are now dashed because Islamic militants are back, fighting Malian troops there. Amin is a Christian who fled Gao before the armed Islamists arrived. She says when the rebels came, they vandalized her church and burned a Bible. She told us they said they had defeated Jesus, but that is a lie. Amin and thousands of others have found refuge in the capital city of Bamako.
Many of the internally displaced that are still here fled the north last spring as the Islamists advanced. Each of them have stories of tragedy to tell, very sad stories, and they're in great need, especially for food and other supplies.
Workers with Operation Blessing are now on the ground in Mali, providing these refugees beans and rice. While they found shelter at some local churches, they still need nutritious meals. More than 250,000 Malians are internally displaced. Thousands more are refugees in neighboring countries. Former Muslim turned Christian Ibrahim Sisi says Islamic militants would have killed him if he hadn't left Timbuktu.
I am grateful for what you've done. It is special and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Operation Blessing. May God bless you.
So as the struggle to liberate Mali of armed Islamic militants continues, Christians are helping those who have fled the fighting, demonstrating the love of Christ to Malians, like little Sarah here, who won't be returning home anytime soon.
The pastor in our next story got off to a slow start in his ministry. He was homeless and had no money.
Now, he recently led a massive prayer rally that included 17,000 pastors. Ephraim Graham has this remarkable story from New Delhi, India.
I was 21 years old when I started.
At 60 years old, Pastor R. Abraham has reached a milestone in his ministry. He's just wrapped a 4-day prayer meeting where world evangelists joined nearly 1 million believers in India to ask God for peace in their country. Filling this 150-acre field is quite an accomplishment in a nation where the Christian population is only a little more than 2%. And for the popular hometown pastor, who didn't want to leave his job as a chemist nearly 40 years ago.
I could even have a car. To have a car in 74 is a big deal. It was a pretty high-paying job in those days. And so you feel like your life is secure. And God spoke to me, almost like an audible voice.
What did he say?
God said to me, son, I have called you for a very specific purpose. I want you to resign your job, get out of your home, go and preach the gospel to your people. I said, oh.
Though he had no idea how to preach, Pastor Abraham obeyed the call. Just months into his ministry, he was broke, homeless, and hungry.
Having something to eat was the biggest miracle in my life in those days. And in the night, I had no place to go, so I used to wait for the shops to pull down the shutters so that I could sleep in front of the corridors of the shops. And you can imagine, and I started to wonder, why did he call me? Why?
After 2 years of prayer and patience, Pastor Abraham joined forces with another minister to start New India Church of God. The organization now reaches across India through more than 3,000 churches.
I have always responded to the leading of God and always responded to the needs. So it is a need that made me to do whatever you see was done because of the need that was before my eyes.
This orphanage is one of those needs. Here at Bethesda, which means House of Mercy, little girls recite scripture with a smile. That smile also hides the pain as they share their horrible stories of abuse. Shivani remembers her dad pouring kerosene on her mom and burning her to death. 8-year-old Tanu recalls her mom being drunk and throwing her out of the house. Their stories are too familiar in a country where parents often prefer having baby boys.
That just tore my heart apart. I just stood there and cried and cried. And the Lord was telling me, well, who is going to take care of them? So first time ever in my life, I opened my mouth and said, I'll take care of them.
He now has 14 orphanages, and he's partnered with CBN's Orphans Promise. Big things often start small, and Pastor Abraham's orphanage did just that. It began 10 years ago. The ministry was simply renting out 2 rooms inside this building. It now has 2 buildings, one for the orphanage and another for a Bible school. This is one of the ministry's 16 Bible colleges. There are also 6 Christian schools. We visited a primary school and a high school with Pastor Abraham.
I am totally committed to help the children. I really got a heart for the children. You know, I want to do the best.
Pastor Abraham has a heart for Indian people, young and old. His latest project is building a retirement home for aging pastors.
The pastors here in India, they don't have any pension. They don't have any life insurance. They don't have any social security. Only thing is, they are either looked after by the children or they are out on the streets.
The pastor has lived on the streets and doesn't want to see anyone there. At 60, he says he's got at least another 40 years to reach them with the gospel and a heavenly home.
As long as you are ready and willing, you know, to do God's will. You know, that's the most important thing.
And that's all for this edition of CGN World Report. Thank you for watching.
Goodbye and God bless you.